Well, this next story is about Moses when he's now confronting Pharaoh. Looks a little intimidating. Let my people go. Moses brings 10 plagues on Egypt is the title. God sent me to take you out of Egypt, Moses said to the people of Israel. Then you will not work for Pharaoh. You will not be his slaves anymore. Then you must tell Pharaoh, they said. We cannot leave Egypt unless Pharaoh says so. Moses and his brother Aaron went to see Pharaoh. God wants to tell you something. God says you must let his people go. Let them go into the desert. Let them have a feast for him there. Oh, Pharaoh is angry. Who is this God? Why should I do what he says? I will not let the Hebrew people go. That same day, Pharaoh told the people of Israel, you must find the straw to make the bricks. We will not give you any more, but you must make as many bricks as you did before. The people of Israel looked and looked for straw. They did not have time to make as many bricks as they did before. So Pharaoh had the slave drivers whip the people of Israel. The people of Israel were very unhappy. Why have you made Pharaoh angry? They asked Moses. Now he's hurting us. Moses talked to God. Why have you treated these people like this? Why have you sent me to Pharaoh? He is hurting these people. Now they cannot leave Egypt. But God said to Moses, you will see what I will do with the Pharaoh. He will let my people go. So Moses told the people of Israel what God said. But the people of Israel worked so hard that they did not listen to Moses. Go back to Pharaoh, God told Moses. Do what I tell you. I will help you do many wonderful things. Moses and Aaron went back to Pharaoh again, but they did what God told him. They did what God told them. Show me something else you can do, said Pharaoh. Aaron threw down his rod, and it became a snake. And then Pharaoh had his magicians come in. They threw down their rods too, and their rods became snakes. But Aaron's snakes swallowed up their snakes. Pharaoh knew that God's power was greater than his magician's power, but he would not let the Hebrew people go. And then God spoke to Moses. Go back again to Pharaoh, he said. Wait for him at the river. Tell him that God says to let his people go. Tell him you will hit the river with your stick, and then the river will become blood. The fish will die, and the river will smell. The people of Egypt will not drink the water. God also said to Moses, tell Aaron to hold out his rod. All of the water that is now in Egypt will become blood. So Moses and Aaron did what God said, but the magicians also turned water into blood. And then Pharaoh went home. He thought his magicians had as much power to turn water into blood as God. He would not let the people go. When the people of Egypt were thirsty, they dug holes to get fresh water. They could not drink the water from the river. 7 days later, God said to Moses, go back to Pharaoh. Tell him that God says to let his people go. Tell him I will send frogs all over Egypt. Tell Aaron to hold out his hand and the frogs will come out of the water. Moses and Aaron did what God said, and when Aaron held out his hand, frogs came out of the water. There were frogs all over the land. The magicians made frogs come too, so Pharaoh thought that they had as much power as God. Look at all those frogs. So, Pharaoh did not like so many frogs. They were everywhere. They even jumped into his bed with him. Tell God to take the frogs away, he said. Then I will let the people go. When should God take away the frogs? Moses asked. Tomorrow, Pharaoh said. I wonder why he wanted to wait a day. Then Moses told Pharaoh, the frogs will leave tomorrow. Then you will know that God is doing these things. So Moses prayed to God. The next day all the frogs died. Only those in the river lived. The people of Egypt made piles of dead frogs. When Pharaoh saw that the frogs were gone, he said, now I will let the people go. God spoke to Moses again. Tell Aaron to hold out his staff. Tell him to hit the ground. The dust will become lice. They will go all over Egypt. Moses and Aaron did what God said. And when Aaron held out his staff, lice went all over Egypt. The lice went on the animals. They went on the people. They were everywhere. Oh, I'm sure that was very itchy. The magicians tried to do the same thing, but they could not bring lice from dust. God did this, they said to Pharaoh. But Pharaoh would still not let the people go. So God told Moses, Get up early in the morning. Tell Pharaoh what God says. Tell him that God will send flies. Tell him the house of Egypt will be full of flies. Tell him the people of Israel will not have flies. From now on, the things I do to the people of Egypt will not be done to the people of Israel. Okay, so I'm going to stop there because it gets kind of long. So we'll continue the story tomorrow.